Right, hello everyone and welcome to round 2 of our July FFA Tournament. This time we're featuring Tini, Rabbit, Pollina, and FunnyMan. And let's see, map looks like it's going to be a bit more forgiving than last time when it comes to iron, which is kind of nice to see. Carbon is available, but not fantastic. Still definitely usable though, I would say, especially with its positioning relative to the other resources. You can see we've got this carbon kind of close to some water, silicon, and aluminum. That might be a nice spot to have. Same thing with this carbon over here. Very, very usable, I would say, even if a bit light on the carbon resource itself. You can see Rabbit actually took that northwest carbon immediately, just making sure to get those locked down. And he's got the adjacent aluminum. I absolutely love the adjacent aluminum that you can transition easily later. Pollina and Tini are both going to go after expansive this game. Tini kind of getting in the way of a potential scavenger that could have happened. And so FunnyMan, he's instead going to end up as a robot. All of our players down. Pollina with a very fast upgrade for an expansive player. That's interesting to note. Must have crushed an awful lot of iron there, and I do believe iron started the game at $40 and steel down at 30, so that can always make for a really quick expansion if you're on the ball with it. And so Pollina gathering up that iron quickly. You can see went for double iron mine at the start and aluminum rather than putting down any steel, and that was just going to be based on the random pricing of steel being so cheap and iron being so expensive. So that's fantastically done out of Pollina. Absolutely have to come into that. FunnyMan's gone for the far more traditional iron double steel right at the start into some aluminum, water, and a farm. Gonna want to pick up a claim. No, got a claim still to get another farm down. So FunnyMan's gonna be okay. Extra claim off of founding last is always a nice tool to have available. Let's see, Pollina, I do believe, got down second. Yeah, and so the other extra claim is going to be going on to Tini up here in the corner at next HQ levels away still. Tini going after that steel immediately. You can see with the cheap steel, that's actually being quite difficult, which really shouldn't be any big surprise. And I'm kind of concerned about Tini up here. There's really nice positioning for water and for silicon and for aluminum, but you can see because he couldn't upgrade quickly, the nicest water has been taken away right away by Pollina. Says, all right, I'll have that, thank you very much. Definitely getting solidly in the way there. And Tini's just having trouble getting to the point where they can use these resources that they're next to. Like, if they had been able to pick up that water, that would have been absolutely fantastic. But this is why you don't really position your buildings this way. If you're going to found next to valuable resources, but maybe be a little bit slow because of it, what you want to do is position your buildings on top of those resources so that nobody can take them away from you, right? If we had just positioned on top of this water here, think about the great position Tini could be in right now. Just goes ahead, swaps into the water pumps, gets this $80 water flying in very, very quickly. Could have been a really nice position to be in. Unfortunately, it is not going to pan out that way. 3 of our players have gotten to HQ3 at this point. Tini, meanwhile, has just now managed to hit 2. Really, really struggling to pull in the money over in that northeast corner. You can see these farms are not doing so hot for Rabbit. Actually going to transition on out of them. Really drove that water price sky high at the start. And with a fair amount of water coming in even, still hasn't managed to get to the point where the farms are actually a reasonable thing to have down. So instead, we're just going to see wind turbines come out. I'm totally okay with that. Carbon's a bit expensive on the back of it, which is something you always need to watch out for, is how expensive those turbines can be in terms of carbon, but at least power is down. And in fact, we already have a geotherm up for Rabbit as well. I'm a little concerned that might flood the market a bit, but it is difficult to use these 2 claims very well, and so I'm not too surprised to see just a little bit of wind power coming out. We might see a full transition out of these 3 once power has come down a bit, and that triangle could end up being very useful in the future. For now, hopefully it'll be okay, and Rabbit will be able to survive on just the water income, because if we're looking at it, all Rabbit has to buy glass with is this water. And I'm going to be real concerned if Rabbit can't hit HQ4 on the back of that fairly quickly. Dust storm coming in, that's also going to help out with these wind turbines. I'm really curious to see what's going to happen with these power prices, because either it's just going to die because everybody's getting power, or Rabbit's going to pay off a huge amount of debt and possibly get to the point of making money on the back of this dust storm. Let's see, more wind turbines being taken away. That one by FunnyMan. And then Rabbit's, in fact, going to take it afterward. Let's see, FunnyMan could see with a spy where the Goon Squad was. Rabbit couldn't, and so Rabbit, instead of going after the original one, just takes the one that was taken. Just says, yeah, I'll have that too. I know that one's probably going to be safe because somebody just took it. It's very unlikely they would have goon squatted it after taking it. So just a nice little move by Rabbit. And you can see, look at this ridiculous amount of debt Rabbit's paid down. Like 1,000 per second right now after the wind turbine gets taken back away from him. Power is dropping very, very rapidly, of course, 2 a second, but Rabbit's managed to pay off almost all their debt and is in a position to just about hit HQ4. With this, you can easily transition into food or into some reactors, and so Rabbits actually set themselves up in an absolutely fantastic position. Tini is going to be the first one to hit reactors, gets out of that steal finally, something I desperately want to see more players do, is be willing to scrap that steal in an FFA where other players are making it. Meanwhile, Pollina, because Pollina's power was the one being toyed with, Pollina is now in a position where they cannot... They just have so much debt, and they're having trouble moving forward. They can't get to HQ4 because they made an investment into the power, only just now getting there, once again, behind Rabbit and behind FunnyMan, despite being the first player in the game to hit HQ2. Really having trouble keeping up in those upgrades, and you can see that just now power is dead, down to $48. Pollina still has C levels of debt even after the upgrade. Pollina is definitely in a bit of an awkward position. Rabbit, I think, is going to be our player to watch for this game, but FunnyMan also in a great spot. Got those farms down for nice food production now that water is cheap. Has the geothermal online without an overcommitment to power in particular. Has that steel coming in. Steel's not great. Like, glass isn't great, but the food is great. And everything else is definitely at least acceptable. So I think FunnyMan still in a great spot. Meanwhile, Rabbit, I'm really concerned about the fact that Rabbit is still in this power. I kind of wonder if it would have been better to transition into some food as well. You don't have enough water coming in to support that long term, but of course with ice available, all you have to do is push to 5. And then you can pretty easily throw down the ice condensers and make plenty of water that way. Hacker Ray is going to go to Pollina for 14k. And you can see that Rabbit is actually headed toward what looks to be a pleasure dome. Yep, that's what we're going to have. And is also constructing a patent lab. So this is kind of a nice thing to do if you want to just get out of one of your turbines. I'm a little concerned about this other turbine being here. I almost wonder if he could afford to transition this as well into an optimization center or something like that. I'm concerned about the carbon cost of that in particular, because that's going to be quite pricey. But meanwhile, like, the wind turbine itself doesn't actually do anything. So this is effectively just a blank tile in a lot of ways. And that's how Rabbit needs to treat it. Big freeze onto Pollina, which is going to be painful. That was an EMP, I do believe, or maybe even a pair of EMPs. Yeah, one from FunnyMan and one from Rabbit must have hit about simultaneously, because I think they hit almost the exact same spots. Not exactly what you want to do, overlapping EMPs like that. FunnyMan, HQ4 headed pretty solidly toward 5. The question is, who's going to be in the better spot? Rabbit with the Pleasure Dome, which is now not his, and instead is going over to Tini. Tini desperately needs that cash, so I can definitely get behind that play out of Tini. But Rabbit, he's got the Pleasure Dome down. He's got the Patent Lab down. He's headed for virtual reality already, which is a nice tool to kind of tell everyone else, look, you can put down a Pleasure Dome, but do you really want to? I mean, you know, I already am making the money. You don't need to try and make the money. So that's always nice to see from players who go for that quick Pleasure Dome. And Rabbit's headed to Thinking Machines as well, fairly quickly after this. So FunnyMan, he's got the HQ lead. The question is, what's he going to do to kind of start getting his tech developed? What's his late game plan going to be? Because he waited until 5 to start thinking about that. Is he hoping to just make enough money quickly to get purchases done on this food and this water that he's got coming in that are seriously making him the cash? Excuse me. Or is he going to try and make a transition? Is he going to try and push to an Offworld, which isn't honestly all that valuable right now? We've got water as our best launch and food kind of about the same. Still under 30,000 though. It would take a long time to pay that Offworld market back, even as cheap as it is right now. He's going to talk about like 4 minutes or so until that thing is even broken even. Alright, claim auction, that's fine. EMP onto Funny. This is the other thing about hitting the upgrade button, right? I do believe that was Rabbit's EMP, but regardless, whenever you're upgrading and that number goes up, it means players are going to be paying more attention to you, because it's difficult to go in and be like, all right, well, what patents have been taken this game? Okay, virtual reality is gone, but nothing else. And maybe that's not much of a concern, and I don't know what he's going to go for next. And what tech has been claimed so far, and like it even does someone have a pleasure dome. It's harder to find all that information than it is to just look in the top right corner and be like, this dude has a 5. We need to attack him. Because everybody else is on a 4. And so that's just something you always have to be concerned about with the upgrade as well, is there's a much higher chance of black market being focused on you. We do see the optimization centers coming down from FunnyMan just now, so that's good to see. Always nice to see a transition actually happening. Pollina is hacking what? Nothing at the moment. I think something just finished and I missed it. Regardless, what do you hack as Pollina right now, right? You're making food, but so are other people, so maybe that's a bit weird. You could maybe think about chemicals, but you have to transition into them first, and that's all a little bit awkward and not exactly what you want to be doing. But I think it could work. The hacker array has options, but Pollina paid 14,000 debt for that in a situation where they are in D levels of debt, so they really need to be getting a benefit off of that very, very soon. Rabbit has made it up to 5. Pollina getting nuked. Man, Pollina's just having a hard time with this game. But Rabbit on up to 5 as well. We've got farms coming down. During the dust storm is a little weird for the farms, and I am concerned about this water price, so I don't know how much I can support the farms that are coming down right now. Maybe would have liked to see more water happening. Even maybe would have liked to see slant drilling prioritized over something like financial instruments in order to guarantee the double high water tile here. I mean, a nuke would still be painful in that area, but you could always just defend the tile with a goon squad if you were too concerned about that. There are things to consider. I don't know if financial instruments and perpetual motion are the right tools to be prioritizing right now. All right, FunnyMan. Nukes coming down on more and more water. See, this is what I'm talking about. Like, everybody's getting nuked out. If you can goon your own water and take slant drilling away from everyone else, I think that just puts you in an absolutely fantastic position. All right, FunnyMan. Looks like FunnyMan is after teleportation and is upgrading food and water. Those are the two priorities for him right now. Maybe a little bit of a misordering here, going for double food before 1 water when water is really creeping up there. But on the other hand, how much water production does FunnyMan have? Yeah, 0.75. Upgrading 0.75 to like 1, not even 1. Not all that beneficial. So that's FunnyMan's going to have to find a way to kind of deal with that. And once again, prioritizing teleportation over slant drilling, not something I can get behind in a game where nukes seem to be having such a massive impact. You can see slant drilling, nobody's after it yet. And slant drilling is one of the best tools in the game for dealing with nukes. I am definitely concerned about that situation right now. Pollina's still making good water money. Got nuked out a little bit over here, but still has the high available for, once again, slant drilling as well. And Tini's really pulled back into it. Managed to get just some solid production down. Not a lot of steel, which I like to see, right? Let other people make the steel. If you know they're going to be making steel, just let them do it. They'll keep that price reasonable, and you can just buy it and get into all of these other valuable resources like glass and chems and electronics and so on and so forth from there, right? So that's really nice to see out of Tini, pulling themselves back into the game more or less from such a weak position, but I still think Rabbit and FunnyMan are our two players to watch. Pollina is scary in their own way with almost $100,000 of cash, but of course with $171,000 of debt and still not HQ5. It is definitely not a position you want to be in. Pollina actually just going for a fast off-world market. And I don't know if that's going to save them this game. I mean, off-worlds are getting better, right? Food is creeping up in price. Off-world, it's all the way up to 640 for a 45,000 profit. So the off-world can get something done, but there's so much available on-world still. I still don't know if I prefer prioritizing it over the expansion. So you can have things like extra electrolysis reactors, maybe some electronics production, things like that. Those tools are still definitely available and far less of an investment in a lot of ways than an off-world market that's quite possibly just going to get mutinied away, especially when you're in D levels of debt and cannot defend this building effectively. Thinking Machines did already go on over to Rabbit. Pollina is the only one still in a patent lab and is going to end up taking slant drilling. Meanwhile, FunnyMan has decided that Tinny was looking pretty vulnerable, but Tinny did manage to defend themselves. So FunnyMan is not going to get that majority buy that he was after. Definitely a bit unfortunate there for him. All right, let's see. Where have we landed at this point? Rabbit with the cash. Almost everybody 5. Pollina's still stuck on 4, but with that off-world market. However, it hasn't been punished yet. Nobody's gotten aggressive against this market. And it's not protected by anything. There are no defensive tools here. So, this is one thing you can do when you are running way behind. Is just make what's effectively, to be entirely blunt, a stupid play that should never work. Right? You just make this dumb play. And first of all, nobody's going to be watching for your dumb play. Because why on earth would you do that? And second of all, when you're behind, and you're going to lose anyway, you can't lose more. Right? So even if you get punished, you're in no worse position than you were in the first place. And if you don't get punished, there's a chance of you really bringing things back. If people ignore you. And you can see Pollina got 1 launch off. Now, 1 launch isn't enough to pay for an off-world. You need at least 2. So they haven't actually paid for this just yet. But they have kind of pulled themselves back a little bit. I mean, they got off the 1, which means the off-world didn't cost much money at this point. And they have gotten to 5, and they have secured some of their own stock. So Pollina, with that aggressive play, is really trying to pull things back. Now, all that said, Rabbit's going to be overjoyed to see this vulnerable off-world market because A, Rabbit has Thinking Machine, so he knows it's not going to be Thinking Machined, and B, Rabbit is the scavenger and is really going to be set up in a great position to abuse a play like this by being able to purchase those mutinies quickly. And then once Rabbit can no longer control the off-world market, EMPs will be available momentarily to shut it down. Meanwhile, FunnyMan really doesn't have much of a late-game plan going, it feels like. I mean, on-world prices are a little bit awkward, except for water. But FunnyMan never got into a position where they could make money off of that water. Yeah, you can upgrade water till the cows come home, and at the end of the day, what do you have? You have nothing, still. You upgrade 0.25, with all of your optimizations, you can get up to 0.5 water per tile. 0.5 water per tile. That's absolutely nothing, right? And then with adjacency, it's going to be 0.75 per tile. So you can commit 2 tiles and get a medium water tile worth of water if you upgrade all the way, right? That's just... I don't think that's going to work out for FunnyMan. He does have an off-world down now next to the colony, it looks like, and it is defended by a goon squad, so I do like to see that. But I need to see more. I kind of want to see more out of him, because without that, I think Rabbit's just going to run over this entire game from here. Oh, man. Let's see. Tinny's still back in D levels of debt. Tinny's been struggling with debt for quite a while now. Really had to ignore it for an extended period of time to try and pull into the game. There was this interesting effect for Tinny where they didn't have enough buildings down when power spiked to get punished super hard in that moment. But since then, Tinny has still been acquiring enough debt that interest ticks have become a concern. And so they're kind of having to worry about that and defending themselves and all kinds of other things instead of making all of the investments they would maybe like to make as fast as they would like to make them. Rabbit has chosen FunnyMan as the target, which really shouldn't be much of a surprise, I guess. Because FunnyMan does look dangerous, but I don't know if this was actually the correct decision. Because, as I discussed earlier, FunnyMan, okay, into the glass, that helps. But FunnyMan, like these upgrades, aren't all that great for FunnyMan last I checked. The chemicals are good. No, that's Rabbit, excuse me. So FunnyMan, he has glass upgrades. Those are fine. But they're just kind of fine. He's got food upgrades, but water was looking difficult. Maybe FunnyMan, if FunnyMan can get to the point where he's making money, which given what food's doing at this point, maybe FunnyMan can make money, this is the right decision. Otherwise, I don't know if I support that over trying to kill Pollina, because Pollina is A, cheaper, and B, is expansive. and therefore generally has an extensive amount of territory that can be very, very useful for trying to make money from. Now, that said, Pollina doesn't have upgrades, right? That's what Pollina truly lacks, is upgrades. And that's definitely a concern. Teleporting that trace water just makes me so sad. Let's see, a bunch of low water over here. So you can see that the trace is still a low, even after all these nukes. And you're never going to get rid of these low tiles, right? You have to nuke. In order to get rid of this guy, you have to nuke this tile. In order to get rid of this guy, you have to nuke this tile. And then in order to get rid of this one, you need to nuke these tiles as well. That's just never going to happen. So a bunch of low tiles available for Pollina over there. Excuse me. So Rabbit still looking to be in an absolutely fantastic position. You can see FunnyMan, because of the Offworld markets coming online and food spiking, FunnyMan did start finally making money off of these farms, which is absolutely fantastic for Rabbit in a lot of ways if food stays high, because he'll get rid of all the money that FunnyMan made very, very easily and very quickly. He can, in fact, do that just about now if he would like to. And then he'll start pulling in all that money from food, right? All that food money will be Rabbit's. He'll have a fantastic subsidiary against two players who have just been kind of lagging behind. Pollina's really tried to pull themselves back here. Tinny's still in kind of an odd position of not even having the double Offworld market online yet, really not having significant tech available in any way. I mean, the optimization center has something done. You've got a couple water here, you've got a couple fuel there, and the water pumps are running quite effectively. In addition to that, you have plenty of territory for ice, which none of these players are using, which is a huge mistake these days, I think, given how much more valuable ice is than it used to be. But overall, I don't know if anybody is in a position to threaten Rabbit from here. And on top of that, because of the format, what we're likely to see is Pollina try and take down Tinny, and Tinny try and take down Pollina, rather than the two players work together to bring down Rabbit. Because they can get a point from executing the buyout, right? Each buyout is worth 1 point. But if they don't succeed in a buyout, they get no points, right? So it's pretty all or nothing to go after Rabbit. And they would have to work together. They would have to figure out, okay, who's got more money? Well, then who needs to make the purchase first? And they have to like communicate all of that effectively to try and bring Rabbit down. Who, Rabbit, please finish off FunnyMan. Like, you've got all that water sitting there. Just kill him. Just get rid of him. And then buy the water back. It's plenty valuable to do. You really want to kill your person you're going to make a subsidiary quickly, because then they start stockpiling money. Because as you can see, FunnyMan, well, he gets knocked down to no money because he's a subsidiary now, right? And he's not going to give you money until he has a decent stockpile of money, right? Okay, now he's worth 25 per share, now 27, now 31, now 34, so on and so forth from there, right? But you want to have him start developing that stockpile quickly, so that he can start giving you money, because your income is based on his stockpile of cash, right? So I really don't like that Rabbit was sitting there choosing to play with water rather than just finishing the game. Oh, this solar flare. Look at this ice. Look at this ice. Successful off-world shipment. 5.7. 5.7 water per second during this solar flare. That's ice. Look at how much water he's making. It's beyond ridiculous. And that was without any water upgrades. I just want to point that out. Now it's up to 7 water on that ice tile. So Pollina pulls off the purchase on Tinny. And unfortunately, that pretty much means the game is over. It's no surprise to see Pollina knock out Tinny, because once again, you get a point for the buyout. But Rabbit, he's going to end up taking the win, and he's going to get 4 points, whereas Pollina is going to get just the 1. Well, goodbye water price. But that just means food is valuable, and so Rabbit's subsidiary is just going to keep making more and more money and handing all that over to him. And all Rabbit really would need to do, if he was even worried in this position, is to EMP these farms. Launch affirmative. Yeah, launches still, I mean, they're good, But think about how high that food price was for a while and how difficult it would have been to use just off-world markets to really clean this game up. Meanwhile, Pleasure Domes, our two surviving players both had Pleasure Domes down. I just want to point that out. And Rabbit has for the cash for the kill if he just cancels at this point. Which he's probably not going to do, but... Come on, press the button. You've got the money now. Finish it quickly, Rabbit. Remember, time matters. Time does affect our tiebreakers. Just as a reminder to viewers at this point, that the faster you can finish the game, the better, because it will impact your tiebreakers. Well, yeah, that pretty much tells the tale, right? The scavenger could keep his off-worlds online, and therefore he won the game. It's not actually quite that simple, but it is pretty straightforward in a lot of ways. Rabbit, if we look at his income, look at all this off power. This was really a jump start for him, right? All that power he got to sell really kicked him into a very, very strong position very early on. Sold a lot of water. A lot of this was right at the end, of course. And they did a decent job making money off chemicals. I think the power was the single most influential thing, which let him kind of push into a strong position. That combined with thinking machines and utilizing those mutinies effectively really gave Rabbit just a ton of money off of other people's off-worlds and his own, because it's so difficult to get aggressive against him. He can get aggressive against you. What are you going to do about that? Not a whole lot, as it turns out. Also, eventually made $110,000 off of that financial instruments. So financial instruments long-term was a great pickup. I still think that slant drilling is what you prioritize in that situation. You can see after Pollina got it, they really managed to pull back into a position to get something done in that game, just not quite enough to recover, but it was still quite strong. But financial instruments, it did make some money. No doubt about that. I don't know if Energy Vault was the best idea, because you can almost be like, well, you just start taking the weaker patents once the game is kind of winding down, but I don't know if Energy Vault was actually necessary, or if it was even worth the chemicals that were required to get it. Optimizations, yeah, Rabbit had the most optimizations, no big surprise there, although it is nice to see all of our players using optimizations here. An important late game tool. I really think FunnyMan probably could have done a bit better if he hadn't prioritized HQ5 over starting to move into that late game tech, because you can see that Rabbit, one of the big things about him was just that he had 6 patents, right? 6 patents out of 12 patents. It's literally half the patents in the game over to Rabbit. FunnyMan only picked up teleportation, and I'm not sure that actually did a whole lot for him. So I think maybe moving into that patent lab earlier could have been far more beneficial.